A tale of betrayal. I cheated on my husband with my father-in-law. When I think about the series of events that brought me here, sitting alone in this cafe, it still feels like a distant nightmare. My name is Emily, and my story of betrayal is an emotional roller coaster that left me without ground, without a husband, and without a father-in-law. It started innocently, like many infidelity stories. I never thought I would betray my husband, let alone with his own father. Everything began when my father-in-law, Jack, came to live with us after his wife passed away. He was devastated, lost, and my husband, Michael, thought it would be good for him to stay with us for a while. At first, everything seemed normal. Jack was kind, polite, and always willing to help. We had long conversations in the kitchen while I prepared dinner, and we quickly grew closer. Michael, on the other hand, was always busy with work. He came home late, tired, and barely had time for me. I felt neglected, lonely, and it was in that empty space that Jack found a breach. I remember one particular night when we were alone in the living room. The soft candlelight illuminated his face as he told me stories from his youth. I don't know if it was the loneliness or the need for attention that made me cross that thin line, but when our eyes met, something inside me broke. "Emily, you have been a great support to me," he said, his voice laden with emotion. "I don't know how I would have gotten through this loss without you." "Jack, I feel the same," I replied, my heart pounding. He approached slowly, and before I knew it, we were kissing. It was a long kiss, full of repressed desire. We knew it was wrong, but in that moment, nothing else mattered. The feeling of being wanted, appreciated, was intoxicating. From that moment on, everything changed. Our innocent conversations turned into secret meetings. We found excuses to be alone, and I increasingly longed for those stolen moments. Michael, absorbed in his work, suspected nothing. But the guilt began to weigh on me. I loved my husband, but the connection with Jack was something I had never experienced. I was torn between loyalty to Michael and the passion I felt for his father. It was a confusing and painful period where every decision seemed wrong. It didn't take long for the intensity of our romance to become unsustainable. The guilt was eating away at my soul, but at the same time, I couldn't stay away from Jack. He had a magnetism, a maturity that attracted me in a way I had never felt before. One night, when Michael was on a business trip, everything spiraled out of control. Jack and I were in the kitchen as usual, and he approached me with that look I knew so well. "Emily, we need to talk," he said, his voice serious but tinged with desperation. "Yes, Jack, I know," I replied, feeling a knot in my throat. "We can't go on like this. It's wrong. It's destroying you. It's destroying us both," he continued, taking my hand. I nodded silently, but in that moment, our physical proximity spoke louder. Before I knew it, we were kissing again, with more passion and urgency than ever. That night, we went to the guest room and, for the first time, fully gave ourselves to each other. It was a mix of guilt and pleasure that I will never forget. In the days that followed, I tried to avoid Jack, but it was impossible. Every look, every touch, reignited the flame. I began to feel increasingly guilty and confused. Michael remained oblivious to everything, immersed in his work, and I felt trapped in a web of lies. One afternoon, when Michael was at the office, Jack called me to talk. "Emily, this has to stop," he said, his eyes full of tears. "I know, Jack. But how?" "I don't know what to do," I replied, my voice choked. "We need to confess to Michael. He deserves to know the truth," he insisted. The idea of telling Michael everything terrified me. I knew it would destroy our marriage and his relationship with his father, but at the same time, I couldn't keep living this lie. We agreed to tell him everything and planned to talk to Michael the next night. The night came faster than I expected. Michael was sitting on the sofa, looking at us with an unassuming smile. My heart was racing and my hands were sweaty. Jack and I exchanged a tense look before starting. "Michael, we need to talk," I began, trying to keep my voice steady. "Sure, love." "What's going on?" he asked, still unsuspecting. Jack took the lead. "Michael, what we're about to tell you isn't easy. It's something that's been eating away at us, and we need to be honest with you. Michael frowned, the smile slowly disappearing. What's going on? You're scaring me. I took a deep breath and continued. Michael, your father and I, we made a terrible mistake. We had an affair. The silence that followed was deafening. Michael remained motionless as if he couldn't believe what he had just heard. His eyes widened and his expression changed from surprise to deep pain. You what? He shouted, standing up from the sofa. How could you do this to me? My father? Emily? Michael, I'm so sorry. I never wanted this to happen. It was a moment of weakness, and I regret it. I tried to explain, but he didn't want to listen. Weakness? You two destroyed my life. How could you? He shouted, his voice breaking with pain. Jack tried to approach Michael. Son, please, listen to me. I made a mistake, but I'm still your father. We can get through this together. Michael stepped back, his eyes filled with tears. Get through? How can I look at you and not feel hatred? Get out of my house. Now. The pain on Michael's face was unbearable. I wanted to hug him, to beg for forgiveness, but I knew nothing I said would make a difference. Jack and I left the house that night, leaving Michael behind, devastated. Jack and I went to a hotel where we spent the night in silence. The weight of what we had done was crushing. The next morning when I woke up, I saw that Jack was already up, looking out the window with a somber expression. Emily, this can't go on, he said without turning around. We destroyed Michael's life. We have to find a way to make amends. How? What can we do? I asked, desperate. He'll never forgive us. I don't know, he replied, finally looking at me. But we have to try. I'll talk to him, try to find a way to minimize the damage. Jack left the room, leaving me alone with my thoughts. The guilt was eating me alive. Thinking of Michael, alone and hurt, was unbearable. I knew I had made an irreparable mistake, and that no matter what happened, my life would never be the same. In the following weeks, I tried to contact Michael several times, but he refused to talk to me. Jack also faced resistance. Michael didn't want to see or hear from either of us. He was too hurt, and I didn't blame him. One day, I received a letter from Michael. My heart raced when I saw his name on the envelope. I opened it with trembling hands and began to read. Emily, I don't know where to begin. The pain you and my father caused me is indescribable. I loved and trusted both of you, and this betrayal destroyed me. I can't look at you without feeling anger and pain. I need time to process all of this. I ask that you respect my space. Don't look for me anymore. I need to rebuild my life without you. Maybe someday I can forgive you, but for now, I just need to be away. Michael. His words cut me like a dagger. I knew it was the end of our marriage, the end of everything we had built together. Jack was in the same boat, having lost his son and his dignity. The following months were the loneliest and most anguishing of my life. Jack and I rented a small apartment in the city, but our relationship quickly deteriorated. The guilt and shame were constant, and our conversations became filled with recriminations and regrets. Emily, what will we do now? Asked Jack one night as we sat in the living room. We lost Michael. We lost everything. I don't know, Jack. I feel like we're living an endless nightmare, I replied, my voice breaking. Maybe it would be better if we separated. This situation is destroying us, he suggested, looking at the floor. The idea of being alone was terrifying, but I knew he was right. We were sinking into a pit of guilt and regret, and staying together would only prolong our suffering. We agreed to go our separate ways, and he moved to another city to start anew. I, on the other hand, decided to stay and try to rebuild my life. I found a job at a small bookstore where I could lose myself among the books and try to forget the pain I felt. But the memory of Michael and everything that had happened never left me in peace. One day, while organizing books on the shelves, I saw a familiar figure enter the store. My heart nearly stopped when I recognized Michael. He looked thinner and older, as if the past few months had been as hard on him as they had been on me. Michael? I called, my voice trembling. He turned and saw me, an expression of surprise and pain passing over his face. Emily, he said, approaching slowly. I didn't expect to see you here. I work here now, I replied, trying to keep my composure. He was silent for a moment, looking around the store. We need to talk, he finally said. There's something I need to tell you. My heart raced as I led him to a more private corner of the store. We sat at a small table and he began to speak. Emily, I've spent the past few months trying to understand what happened. I was furious, hurt, and everything seemed senseless. But I realized that being angry wouldn't change anything. I need to move on. Michael, I'm so sorry for everything. I know my words can't undo what I did, but I truly am sorry, I said, tears streaming down my face. I'm sorry too, Emily, but we need to leave the past behind. I've met someone. She helped me see that I can still be happy, despite everything. Those words hit me like a blow. Part of me wanted him to still be suffering, to feel the same pain I did. But at the same time, I wanted him to be happy, even if it meant without me. I'm happy for you, Michael. You deserve to be happy, I replied, trying to hold back the tears. He smiled sadly. I hope you find happiness too, Emily. Despite everything, I wish you the best. We said goodbye with a silent, heavy embrace. As he left the store, I felt as if a chapter of my life had closed forever. After seeing Michael again, I felt a mix of relief and sadness. Relief because he was finding a new path, but sadness because my life seemed stagnant. I decided it was time to make changes. I needed to rebuild my self-esteem and find a purpose. I started attending a support group for people who had gone through marital crises. There, I met people with stories as complicated as mine, and for the first time, I felt I wasn't alone. One of the group members, Sarah, became a close friend. She helped me see that despite the mistakes, we all deserve a second chance. Emily, you need to forgive yourself, she said one night after one of the meetings. We all make mistakes. The important thing is to learn from them and move forward. Her words resonated with me. I had spent so much time hating myself for betraying Michael and destroying our family that I couldn't see beyond that. I decided to follow Sarah's advice and started therapy. The therapist helped me understand the motives behind my actions and work on self-love. With time, I began to feel stronger. I went back to school, enrolling in a psychology course, something I had always been interested in. I wanted to use my experience to help other people going through difficult situations. One day, I received an unexpected call. It was from Jack. He wanted to know how I was doing and if we could meet to talk. With some reluctance, I agreed. We arranged to meet in a quiet cafe, away from prying eyes. When I arrived, I saw Jack sitting at the table looking tired and aged. Emily, he said, standing up to greet me. Thank you for coming. Of course, Jack. How are you? I asked, sitting down. I've been better, but I still think a lot about everything that happened. We need to talk about Michael, about us, he began, his voice filled with emotion. We talked for hours, recalling the events that led us to this situation. It was a painful but necessary conversation. In the end, we reached an understanding. We decided that to move forward, we needed to cut all ties. It was the only way to allow Michael and ourselves to find peace. The final farewell to Jack was a painful relief. I knew I needed to move on, but his absence left a void that initially seemed unbearable. I continued with therapy and studies, focusing on rebuilding my life and finding a new purpose. Sarah, my friend from the support group, was a constant source of support and inspiration. She always had a word of encouragement and urged me to keep moving forward. Emily, you have incredible strength. Use this experience to become a better person and help others, she would say. As time passed, I began to feel I was regaining control of my life. One day, while I was in the bookstore, a woman walked in and approached me. Are you Emily? She asked with a friendly smile. Yes, that's me. How can I help you? I replied, curious. My name is Claire. I'm Michael's new girlfriend. He talked a lot about you. My heart raced, but I tried to remain calm. Oh yes. Michael mentioned he was with someone. It's a pleasure to meet you. I wanted to meet you personally. Michael told me a bit about what happened, and I just wanted to say I admire the courage it took to confess and face the consequences. It must have been very difficult. Honestly, it was one of the hardest things I've ever done, I admitted, surprised by her kindness. I wanted to invite you for coffee. I think it would be good for both of us. What do you think? Claire suggested. I accepted the invitation, although I was apprehensive. We met at a nearby cafe, where Claire and I talked for hours. She was an incredible person, and I was grateful that Michael had found someone who made him happy. Claire told me about their plans and how Michael was rebuilding his life. He's doing well, Emily. I know it wasn't easy for any of you, but he's finding his way, she said. I felt relieved to hear that. Claire and I became friends, and that unexpected friendship brought me a peace I hadn't felt in a long time. She helped me realize that despite the mistakes, we all deserve a second chance to find happiness. As my friendship with Claire grew stronger, I began to feel that my life was finally taking a positive direction. I continued my studies and eventually got an internship at a psychology clinic, where I started working with people going through emotional and relational crises. Helping others brought me a sense of purpose and fulfillment that I hadn't felt in a long time. One afternoon, while I was organizing some papers at the clinic, I received an unexpected visit. It was Sarah, my friend from the support group. She seemed excited and had news that would change my life once again. Emily, I have a proposal for you, she said, her eyes shining with enthusiasm. What is it, Sarah? I asked, curious. I'm opening a new emotional and relational support clinic, and I want you to come work with me. I think you would be an incredible addition to the team, she explained, handing me a brochure with the details. The idea of working alongside Sarah, someone who had supported me so much during my darkest moments, was extremely appealing. I accepted the proposal with gratitude and enthusiasm, seeing in it an opportunity for growth and renewal. In the following months, the new clinic thrived. Working with Sarah was an enriching experience, and I was happier than ever. I felt that I was finally on the right path, helping others find the peace and balance that I had fought so hard to achieve. Today, looking back, I see a trajectory of pain, regret, and finally, redemption. The betrayal that destroyed my marriage and my relationship with Michael and Jack also forced me to confront my flaws and seek a new life. Through the support of friends, therapy, and dedication to my work, I found a way to move forward and build something positive from the ruins. I still carry the scars of the past, but I've learned to live with them and use them as a constant reminder of the importance of honesty and self-love. Every day is a new opportunity to be better and to help those around me find their own path to happiness and peace.